Good morning, students. I hope all of you are keeping well today. We are going to do a very fun poem, so I want you to pay attention. Before we begin, I'm going to show you a couple of videos. Watch the videos carefully because I'm going to ask you about what we saw. So, in the above video, we saw three different train journeys. There is a similar poem in your textbook that we're going to do today. It is called From a Railway Carriage and it is by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is Robert Louis Stevenson. He was from the United Kingdom. See, that is a map of the United Kingdom. He was a very famous children's author and he's written many novels as well as poems. Some of his famous works are Treasure Island, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and also famous poems such as The Lamplighter. So today we're going to do From a Railway Carriage by Robert Louis Stevenson. I am going to read the poem once for you and I want you to pay attention. I'm going to ask you some simple questions. From a Railway Carriage, Robert Louis Stevenson. Faster than fairies, faster than witches, bridges and houses, hedges and ditches, and charging along like troops in a battle, all through the meadows, the horses and cattle, all of the sides of the hill and the plain fly as thick as driving rain, and ever again in the wink of an eye, painted stations whistle by. Here is a child who clambers and scrambles all by himself and gathering brambles. Here is a tramp who stands and gazes, and there is the green for stringing the daisies. Here is a cart run away in the road, lumping along with man and load. And here is a mill, and there is a river, each a glimpse and gone forever. Okay, students, now tell me, what is the train faster than? The train is faster than fairies and witches. Very good. Where is the stringing of the daisies taking place? The stringing of the daisies is taking place in the green. Very good. Now we're going to do the first part in detail. All right. What are the things the poet sees from the train? Let's look at our text. There, the underlined words. So, what does the poet see? He sees bridges, houses, hedges, ditches, meadows, horses and cattle, hills, plains, painted stations. These are all the things that the poet sees from the train. Why is the train faster than fairies and witches? This is a fairy and this is a witch. Fairies and witches are both magical creatures and thus they possess the ability to do magic. To describe how fast the train actually runs, the poet uses the images of the fairies and witches to compare the speed of the train. Students, I want you to look at this picture. Now, identify a word that means a boundary or a fence that is covered with bushes. Let's look at some options. Is it house? Is it bridge? Or is it hedge? Let's see. It is not house. It is not bridge. It is hedge. So a hedge is a boundary. Can you see those boundaries? They're covered with leaves or bushes. Now, I want you to identify a word that means a narrow area which is dug to let water enter. Again, I'm going to put some options. Is it which? Is it bridge or is it ditch? Let's see. It is not which. It is not bridge. It is ditch. So a ditch is a small or a narrow area where water enters. How is the train charging along? Let's look at our text. The train is charging along like troops in a battle. Students, look at these pictures. Now, I want you to identify a word that means a group of soldiers. Again, I'm giving you some options. Is it bridge? Is it battle? Or is it troop? Let's see what the answer is. It is not bridge. It is not battle. It is troop. So a troop is a group of soldiers. Now I'm going to show you a video. I want you to watch it carefully.
So students, if you paid attention, the sound that the train makes and the sound of the soldiers marching is very similar.
Now look at this line. Charging along like troops in a battle. The movement of the train is compared to troops in a battle with the use of the word like. What is this figure of speech called? Is it alliteration, metaphor, or simile? I'm sure you know the right answer. It is a simile. What is a simile? A simile is a figure of speech where a comparison is made between two different things with the use of the words like, so, or as. Students, throughout the history of the world, there have been many famous troops and armies. One such famous army is the 10,000 Immortals. Now, Herodotus is the father of history, and in one of his works called Histories, he has written about the 10,000 Immortals. Now, these 10,000 Immortals, they were serving the Persian Empire. That's the Persian Empire. Today, Persia is called Iran. Can you look at that map? See, we have Iran. You can also see our country, India, on that map. Now, these 10,000 Immortals, you know why they were named like that? Because if one soldier had to die, he was immediately replaced by someone else. So their number never reduced, it was always 10,000. What is the meaning of the word immortal? Immortal means never dying. So their number never died. The number always remained 10,000, which is why these troops were named the 10,000 Immortals. That was very interesting information, right? Now let's move ahead with our poem. Tell me, how do the sights fly by? Let's look at our text. The sights fly by as thick as driving rain. Now let's look at this. The sights flying by are compared to the thick driving rain with the use of the word as. What is this figure of speech called? Is it onomatopoeia? Is it a metaphor or is it simile? A comparison with the use of the word as is a simile. So which is a figure of speech in that line? Simile. How do the painted stations whistle by? Let's see. The painted stations whistle by in the wink of an eye. Now a wink is very fast. It is a movement in one eye. It is very similar to us blinking. Do you realize we're blinking the entire day, but we do not even realize? And that is how fast the train also moves, as fast as a wink or as fast as us blinking. Alright? Why do the painted stations whistle by? So, students, whenever a train is reaching or crossing a station where it doesn't make a stop, the engine driver blows the horn of the train. Now, this horn sounds like a whistle. Why does the engine driver blow the horn of the train? It is because if anyone is in the way, they can hear the train approaching and get out of the way so that there is no accident. So while the poet is in the train, he hears the whistle of the train as the train approaches the station. And that is why it sounds as if the station is whistling. And that's why we say, as the painted stations whistle by. It is not the station that is actually whistling, but the train. Have you heard the honking of a train? It is very similar to the sound of a whistle. So, students, this is the first part that we've done. Can we try and identify the main idea? I will put some choices, alright? We will select the most appropriate one as our main idea. We have fairies and witches. We have the train flying by. And we have painted stations. Which one is the most appropriate? Is this first part only talking about fairies and witches? No. Is it only talking about the stations? No, but it is definitely talking about the speed of the train and how the train looks like it is flying. So therefore we can say that our main idea here is the train flying by. Now we're going to move ahead and do the next part. Students, what is the child doing? Let's look at our text. The child clambers, scrambles, and is gathering brambles. Look at these two gyps. Alright, now I want you to identify a word that means to struggle or to climb in a way that uses both hands and both legs. For these animals it is okay, but for a person to struggle so much that they need to use legs as well as hands. Let us try and identify the word. Is it man and lord? Is it stands and gazes? Or is it clambers and scrambles? Let's see. The meaning is clambers and scrambles. So to clamber or to scramble is to struggle to climb or move in such a way that you need to use your legs as well as use your hands. How is the child collecting brambles? Let's look at our text. The child is collecting brambles all by himself. What is the tramp doing? The tramp is standing and gazing. The tramp stands and gazes. Look at this picture. Now identify a word that means a poor person who travels from place to place in search of food, money, or work. Let's see our options. Is it child? Is it brambles? Or is it tramp? Let's check. The word is tramp. So a tramp is someone who has no home, no proper job, no money. And so a tramp keeps moving from place to place. Now identify a word that means to look at something. Is it gathering? Is it stringing? Or is it gaze? Let's see. To look at something means to gaze. Students, why do you think the tramp is just standing and gazing? Let's see. A tramp wanders from place to place, right? We saw that. So someone who lives like a tramp does not have education or any possessions. And thus it is just because the tramp has nothing to do. That's why the tramp is just standing and watching the things around. Children, we saw that tramps wander from place to place. Now there's a group of certain people called gypsies. These are some pictures of gypsies. Now gypsies prefer to be called Romani. Why? Because they come from this tribe called Roma. This tribe originated in India, and now from India these people have spread all over the world. They speak the Romani language, which is derived from Sanskrit. Sanskrit is an Indian language. In fact, students now, the Romani people, they are very educated. Many of them have jobs, many of them have education, many of them have their own place where they are settled down. They do not have to wander from place to place. Students, tell me, what does the cart carry? Let's see. The cart carries man and load. Now I want you to identify a word that means moving with a lot of noise. Is it run? Is it load? Or is it lumping? Let's see. The word is lumping. So to lump along means to move making a lot of noise. Students, why is the cart lumping along? Why is it making so much noise? So we see that the cart is carrying a man as well as it is carrying some other luggage on it. So to drag something heavy always requires strength and effort. And because of that, the sound that comes due to the struggle is very loud and noisy, which is why the cart is lumping. Now, students, let us identify a word that means to have a quick look. Is it gone? Is it load? Or is it glimpse? Let's see. It is glimpse. So to have a glimpse of something means to have a quick look at something. What does the poet mean by each a glimpse and gone forever? So we see while the train flies on by, there are several things that are seen by the poet, right? He sees so many things. He sees bridges, he sees houses, he sees children, he sees a man on a cart, he sees so many things. Now, those things that he sees are just for a few seconds, after which the poet will never see those same people again. He will never see the same child, he will never see the same tramp, he will never see the same man. Thus, they are seen for those few moments and then after they will never be seen again. So, students, the poet actually compares the train journey to our lives. When we live for a few years. We get to know a few people for some time and then we move on to new things, to different things. Thus, even the people and the things in our life are only a glimpse. They are just for that moment. They pass soon. Students, even the Romani who we discussed, you remember that tribe? They have something called the gypsy's curse. You know what is a curse? A curse is something that brings bad luck. But it is a very interesting curse. Let us read what it says. It says, may you wander over the face of the earth forever, never sleep twice in the same bed, never drink water twice from the same well, and never cross the same river twice in a year. Students, this is actually meant to be scary. But if we look at it positively, isn't it similar to our last line? Each a glimpse and gone forever. Each one of us are travelers here on this earth and we are always moving, we are always progressing. We are never in the same place, we are never same people. We keep changing as our lives keep changing, even we keep changing. So we are keeping on developing, we keep on progressing. So students, this was the second part that we did. Can we try and identify our main idea here? Let's see, the long train, glimpses from the train, or the child and man. Which is most appropriate? Is it the long train? I don't think. Is it the child and man? No, right? The entire thing is not only talking about them, but it is definitely talking about what the poet sees from the train. Therefore, we can say our main idea here is glimpses from the train. So, students, today we saw how Robert Louis Stevenson describes a journey by train. Now, from our entire poem, can we identify the central idea, what the entire poem talks about? Let's look at some options, all right? The train and people, the journey of life, or the fast train. Do you remember what we discussed, especially the last line? What does it speak of? It speaks of our life as a journey, so we can say that the central idea is the journey of life. Students, the title of our poem is From a Railway Carriage. Is the title appropriate? What is a railway carriage? A railway carriage is basically a train, and the entire poem speaks about the different things that the poet sees from the train. So, from the railway carriage. So, the title is quite appropriate, right? Yes, from a railway carriage is a very suitable title for this poem. Students, have you ever traveled by train? Have you seen how dirty our trains and platforms are? Look at some pictures. You see, people keep littering around, and not just there, not just in trains and on platforms, but in other places too. They will spit, they will throw things here and there, they will throw garbage out of their cars, they will throw garbage out of the train window. All these things are not only dirty, they destroy our environment. Can you list some ways in which we can care for our environment through cleanliness? Simple ways. Maybe if you're traveling and you're eating a chocolate, instead of throwing the wrapper out of the window, you can put it in your bag or in your pocket. You can avoid spitting or throwing dirt around. Correct? These are little ways in which we can care for our environment by keeping it clean. Before we close, there's a short assignment for you to write a short paragraph on a train journey you have experienced. I'm sure all of you must have traveled at least once by train. So write a short paragraph on your experience. So that's it for today, students. Thank you, take care, and have a nice day.